John, welcome to Make a Living.
Bryn, thank you for having me here.
Of course. On our meeting for the first time right now, we share a coach. Shout
Mm-hmm.
out Dan, who I will
Dan
be talking to.
Crowthers.
Dan
Woo.
Crowthers. Yeah. So John, what do you do for a living?
So I am a self-trained mycologist and mushroom entrepreneur.
What is a mycologist?
Someone who studies the science of mushrooms. And I also am a mycologist of manufacturing mushrooms. So I focus on more large-scale production rather than just the actual laboratory science behind the mushrooms.
Super cool. Would you say you're an entrepreneur as well?
Yes, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Yeah, switched industries, but yeah, my whole life I've been an entrepreneur.
And how old are you?
35.
35. Great. What was sort of did you attend college?
No schooling.
No
No
schooling.
nothing.
What was your first entrance into the working world?
Yeah, 11 years old, working at my family's restaurant, sweeping tables for like 3 years. And then started getting jobs in high school. But then I got into fitness really young. So I used to like semi-pro fight, do like jujitsu and Muay Thai and boxing. And I started getting into training when I was like 18 years old, and then started personal training and doing nutrition coaching right out the gate out of high school. And that was essentially my career for till I was 28 years old. Just starting 28 years old. And then once I hit 28, I had this crazy life event. And now 8 years later, I'm the Mushroom Man. So yeah.
I wanna ask about that life event, but first, and I hope to have a full-time trainer, fitness professional on the podcast at some point, but what does it take to get that certification?
It's really, really simple. You have to go to NASM, is like one of the organizations, or something like NASM. If you type that in, you'll get all the other information. It's a training protocol. It's like 8 weeks and you can just get your certificate. That's not really the best way to do that. Just because, again, one of those things like personal training and mushrooms is you can read a book, but it doesn't apply to real shit. You know, I took the one course that I did when I was like 18 or 19 years old, and I never took it again, just because I got credibility from the clients that I was working with. So my work spoke for itself. So then I didn't need to, because a lot of the stuff that I also learned within the books was just kind of wrong.
I'm curious as well, because actually the last time I used a trainer, I pinched a nerve in my shoulder and then it kind of threw me out. Like, are you at all trained in that? Like with injury, I guess. Like, is that?
Yeah. So I'm trained to deal with injury and to work around it. I've had clients come in and so I also back in it was around 2018-ish, I tore my bicep and my forearm from my arm doing an exercise. So I had to basically like relearn how to work within an injury. And that was actually the moment that trained my body to be the best that it's ever been. Yeah.
At this point in your life, where are you living, and what was your mindset? Did you think you were going to be doing fighting and training for your whole career? Were you hoping something else was going to pop up?
Yeah, Bryn, like honestly, no, I didn't. I was I worked my way up. It takes a long time, like within training. I was a trainer at like Export and FFC, and then like higher, more corporate gyms, and then eventually brought myself to my own gym and my own training business and started building up that clientele. And that's a crazy thing. I was super successful. I had a roster of 20 clients that are training 3 times a week. I had online clients. I was living in downtown Chicago in front of Grant Park. Like my life was stellar as far as it came to training. But yeah, then but during this time I was, as like the best I ever looked was the worst I ever felt. And so I was just taking all of these supplements, and I ended up getting prescribed to Norcos or opiates from tearing something in my back. And that basically led down a path of just like using, and then being addicted to eating like 20 a day for like
Mm,
2.5 years. That's when I found psilocybin mushrooms. And during
wow.
that experience, my first time ever, when I was 28 years old, I took a dose of mushrooms. And the next day I woke up sober from opiates after 2.5 years.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And talk about that discovery. Did you have a friend, a mentor who suggested that?
So I was sitting there one night just in a state of kind of despair, just like hopelessness. And I stumbled upon an article that the founder of AA founded AA and all its principles using a magic mushroom trip. And so I just like was like, wait a second. If psilocybin mushrooms can cure alcoholism, why couldn't they cure an opiate addiction? Lo and behold, I'm a big God person. So like for me, it was like, oh yeah, my uncle Marky came by 6 months before this and left me like a bag of mushrooms that I've never touched or ever had. He like grew them, was like, I don't know what to do with them, and left them
Mm.
at my house. And so I literally just went to the closet and stuffed a whole bunch of mushrooms in my mouth and didn't do any reading. It was probably the best accident to ever happen.
Is your
Yeah.
uncle like in the business? Like where did he is he a
No,
farm?
no, he's just an old Italian hippie who grew some mushrooms in his closet.
I want to talk about all the different types of mushrooms because I'm like, how
Yeah.
were those happen to be the right ones? But are you able to share what your experience was this
Yeah,
evening?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, totally.
I've
So,
and also I've never done this. I've never talked to anyone who has had this type of experience, so I'm
yeah.
very curious.
Cool. Yeah, totally. So and so like future no now 8 years later from this experience, I've probably done this with like 1,000 people. So it's like kind of what I do now. But
Wow.
during this experience, basically my entire body overcompassed itself with energy. And at this time, I was kind of at this time, two of my family members had passed away. So I was also in like a state of sorrow. So I try to tell people my situation, there was a lot of catalysts in it to amount to change, right? I just lost
Mm,
family members. I had an opiate addiction. I needed to get clean. I still had to take care of my grandmother. So it was like a praying Hail Mary. And then during the
mm,
experience, it was just an overwhelming sense of like, um, what people don't understand about mushroom trips. It's not like I take this substance and then this is how I feel. It's a it's a journey, it's a ride. And so it'll pick you up, it'll allow you to look at some of the things inside, it'll get you potentially crying, potentially smiling, and it's going to bring you up and down. But during this experience, God came down to me and said, I will save your life if you save the world with mushrooms. And I said, I don't know what that means. And I woke up the next day at like noon. It was like a 9-hour experience. And for the first time in 2.5 years, I went to my fridge and drank something to drink and never wanted an opiate again. And
oh my
so,
goodness. Wow.
yeah. And so it was just like one of those moments where you're just in disbelief. And so I thought I found like the magic cure at this point. So I was like, all right,
Yeah.
well, let's do it again and do it again. And so I stopped vaping and I stopped caffeine all in 1 week.
Oh my goodness. And
Yeah, it's wild.
I noticed when you said like you used the word stumbled upon this article, I can definitely resonate with the feeling of seeking and going down rabbit holes and like searching for an answer. And sometimes you don't you don't find anything or you don't think you find anything. I want to just say to listeners that are in the searching phase, sometimes it might feel like, oh, am I going to be searching forever? Like, is this ever going to stop? As you just described, there's hope on the other side. Part of the reason I started this podcast was like I was very much in a seeking phase in my 20s and searching for something, being like something better must exist and there must be an answer. Like I can't live like in this distressed state forever. And then you do get to the other side. So, anyways, everyone.
Totally. And like let me add one more onto that. It's during that searching phase, um this took me 8 years. So like from then till now, not real success until last year.
Oh,
The search, the journey, the everything, it's you know, sometimes it takes a long time.
totally. Okay, so that day you start,
Yeah. So that was it.
Sober.
It was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was sober and I did that. And then I didn't know anything, like it wasn't my plan to stop personal training or to do any of this. So uh, I just kind of didn't know what to do, but I started focusing on mushrooms. And then I realized something once I started studying them, because then I started reading all the literature and I was like, oh, wait a second. Like the studies show that it lowers the stress response in the brain. I was like, I think, because some of my clients had like autoimmune diseases. And I was like, you guys are completely healthy, but why do you have this little stuff going on?
Mm.
And so I started giving them the information and recommending it and came up with some protocols. And my clients started fixing psoriasis, eczema,
Wow.
suppressing herpes. And my one client, Nicholas Weiss, got off seizure medication. So this was in like the first 3 months. And
Is this like 2018?
2018. Yeah, the
Okay. And at
start.
this point, because I know there's been potentially some recent changes, like, are these mushrooms legal? Like, what is the kind of, I forget, the culture around them at that time?
Yeah, for sure. No, at this time, they're completely illegal. They're not being used really. Many places, there's like one or two cities in the entire country that have like decriminalized them.
Mm.
But when I got my message to save the world with mushrooms, I also got the message that like 100% they're going to be legal.
Mm.
100% it's going to change. I've been screaming from the rooftop since 2018 that this is what's going to happen. This is going to be a legal therapy. It's going to fall in line just like cannabis and be 10 times greater than cannabis. Um, and again, it just goes to show that like from that moment, I actually just had a friend send me from Eugene, Oregon, like one of the first legal receipts for
Mm.
psilocybin,
Oh, wow.
and so, for it to have taken this long, like, is a wild ride. But yeah, so 2018, not legal. So from that moment, it was like, okay, well, I don't know where to get these, but I know I need to learn how to grow. And so I was like, oh shit, okay. So I started studying every single mushroom book on the entire planet that I possibly could.
Yeah.
I just
Wow.
literally bought every one.
So, like, you're becoming not like as a farmer, even the right word? Like, what, what's the word I'm looking for?
No, so that's the thing. It was like I basically had to learn how to become a mycologist. I'm really good at understanding, sales and being able to do processes and SOPs. That's fine, but the actual lab work I didn't understand. So at this moment, I did that in January 2018. March of 2018, I tore my bicep in half, and that was my
Mm.
sign to like, okay, I hear you. I'll quit. So I sold everything, got rid of like gym, clients, everything, and basically moved myself away from the city into a townhouse and just studied mushrooms for 2 years straight. Yeah. And just
And at this point, you're living off savings? Like, what is your?
yeah, like I was living off my life savings and I was making really, really good money at the time,
Okay.
like double, multiple six figures. And it was like, all right, cool. I can use what I have here and the rest of my life savings and use this for 2 years and then take that and invest to open up something.
I
And
only ask
that,
that not to
yeah.
be like nosy, but because I'm trying for people that make pretty significant pivots to, or even when people say like, yeah, I went back to grad school. I'm like, where'd you get the 200 grand to go back to
Oh,
grad school? So I think
dude.
it's helpful for people to hear like, okay, sometimes you have to take a risk. Sometimes you have to have savings. Some people take risks with no savings. Both can be done. But it's just good to
Oh,
know.
Bryn,
Like,
really good question though. Yeah, no, because people ask me that all the time, and I was like, oh no, I was just stupid and sold all my stuff, and I just believed in myself that I was gonna figure it out.
yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, that happened, and I started, studying psychedelic mushrooms, but I couldn't do much with them because they're illegal. So I was like, all right, what can I do?
Mm.
Um, and I found out about cordyceps mushrooms. I don't know if you know anything
Yep.
about. So because they're designed to increase your body's ATP and allow more VO2 max to your lungs, I was like, oh shit, a fitness mushroom.
Mm.
And they were not being cultivated in America and they were very expensive. And so I studied how to grow cordyceps mushrooms with a bunch of mushroom dorks on Facebook for like 6 months straight and just doing experiments. And I turned my entire townhouse into a mushroom laboratory.
So this
and
is in your
cordyceps
house,
grow.
like on your
It's
table.
in
It's
my
not
house. So
outside.
imagine like
Okay.
a 3-story townhouse that was converted from the basement to the middle floor to the top floor, different grow rooms, different
Yeah.
laboratories.
Oh my God. I
Um,
would love to
I
see some photos of that. That's so funny.
I'll send them. And so I start getting good at this. And it's like the whole COVID thing hits and everybody starts learning about mushrooms. And then you understand, Bryn, these are like, they're going for like $500 a pound. And I'm growing
Wow.
like 15 pounds a month, you know? And I'm
Yeah.
just like ship around the country. And all of a sudden it starts like getting better. And I was like, oh shit, you know? And so at this time though, I was like, all right, I mastered this. And then I got another downloads. I'm a very spiritual person. I pray, I meditate, I, focus on myself daily, and I do deep meditations. And during one of my meditations, it came out and it was like, people don't need supplements, people need food. And so I was like, okay. I didn't really understand. I just didn't grow the gourmet mushrooms yet. I grew them like really small scale. Um, so a week later, I'm on the internet and I get a thing online that some mushroom farm in Minnesota is going out of business and selling all of their shit. So I'm like,
Mm.
it's a sign. I got to go buy it all, So I go up there and I spent like $60,000, $70,000, like big chunk of like what I got. And
Wow.
I bought it in February of 2020. And then on the day COVID is closing, I have 2 semi trucks full of equipment coming up to Chicago that they closed everything down on. So I was like, fuck. Like literally the day, March 10th.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so,
Before that closing, so when you're
yeah.
like seeing the sign of like, I got to go to this farm, get all their stuff, when you talk about it now, you seem super like clear, confident. Was that how you felt in that moment, or was there hesitation, or were you
No,
always
there
like,
was
it's a no
no
and
hesitation
okay.
because like once that, like, you got to understand the moment that it took me away and made me sober, it aligned me with a new reality and a new energy where I was in a state of belief that I believed all of this was coming to me.
Mm,
And so I was full send. I was like, this is the answer. Like, I'm never like the equipment that I bought, $60,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it was like $200,000 worth of stuff, So I was
mm,
like, oh shit, I can produce 200,000 pounds of mushrooms with this. Like, it was like a no brainer,
yeah.
I had a buddy who was going to help me do all the engineering because like I don't know boiler tech and all this other stuff. So it was like, oh, this is a shoe in, this
Mm,
is perfect.
wow.
And then you don't expect COVID. So I luckily have a friend who has a horse farm out here, and so he let me put like 2 barnfuls of equipment up
Wow.
at his place, so I didn't have to pay for crazy storage, which was super
Yeah.
nice. And then I
Oh,
went back to
what
the
would that storage even been? You'd have to
oh
like buy an
my
acre
god,
of,
it'd be $4,500 a
you'd have to
month.
like buy
Just get
a farm.
the whole lot.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, all right. So I just went back to cordyceps for a second. And then the most ironic thing in the world out of this whole thing, Bryn, happened. Well, there's a lot of them, but my ex partner at the time was like, hey, by the way, do you know there's a mushroom farm down the street from your old gym? And I was
Mm,
like, get out of here.
yeah.
Every mushroom farm, there's like 10 of them here. She's like, no, I swear there's a mushroom farm down the street from the gym. I was like, all right. So I drive to the old gym. I walk down the street, and in the middle of the hood in Chicago on Chicago Avenue in Sacramento, there's 3 dudes in wetsuits growing mushrooms in an old muscle facility.
Wow.
This is like 21 now. It's my partner for Windy City Mushrooms, and he's a shrimp farmer and mussel farmer, and it just didn't work out. So he ended up switching over to mushrooms, and he had like
Oh,
5 restaurant contracts, but he didn't know anything about mushrooms. And so at this time, I did for 2 years, and I needed more space for my cordyceps. I was like, okay, I got the message to grow these gourmet mushrooms, but I got that taken away from me. But now look at, I have this opportunity to be able to understand how to grow them without building my own thing. Right.
right.
So then I traded time for space, and I basically worked there for, I don't know, 9-10 months, just getting the best training on mycology, running a team of guys, working with all these different mushrooms while I'm growing cordyceps mushrooms. I didn't know him at the time, or that he had, high net worth or anything. I had no clue. And we just kind of were spitballing, like, how can we change the world? And like the idea came that if we were to manufacture the entire process at scale, we can take the mushrooms down to a commodity level price point, which would then allow us to penetrate the grocery store. But you have to have
Mm,
all of that in place in order to have it at a viable economic price. Right.
mm.
And so that's what we did.
This is still cordyceps.
No, this is gourmet mushrooms. This is
Oh,
mushrooms as a whole to be able to put them into a grocery
oh.
store, right?
And
Lion's
I
mane,
wanted to
oyster.
ask,
Yeah.
yeah, and I wanted to ask as well, why is it that like is cordyceps? I've also heard of like is chaga or what is that? Something different?
Yeah. Chaga is another functional mushroom. Yeah.
And I've learned about all that brand is for
For
Sigmatic.
Sigmatic. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like that was like an early, I want to say even back to like 2017 or something, like 2016.
He was
People
one of the
were
first.
putting
Yeah.
that in their coffee. And
Hmm.
why was that? Is that's okay because it's not psychedelic? Is that really
Correct.
like the
Yeah.
difference?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So like with those, the functional mushrooms, like the big 4 or 5 are lion's mane for your brain, cordyceps for energy, chaga for immunity, and reishi for relaxation and sleep. Oh, and then turkey tail for anti-cancer. But
Okay.
those are categorized as medicinal, but lion's mane falls down as medicinal and gourmet because you can eat it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was okay.
And this is
Well,
sorry, when you sort of had that awakening that we should be consuming better food. Is that now this facility that you're in now growing these mushrooms, these are to consume like eating?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's who consume eating. So yeah, we basically put the rest of our life savings into going and getting this 50,000 square foot warehouse, which the place that we were going to rent the week of canceled. So I had to go find 50,000 square feet in a week. So that was fun.
Wow.
Found a spot and brought now it has 75, but at the time we brought 25 8 foot by 20 foot shipping containers inside of an old airport hangar and stuck them on top of each other and built a makeshift mushroom farm. No blueprint. We had no one's, it's never been done before. And so
What's the best environment for mushrooms to grow in? Like, is it temperature control? Like, is it intense or
temperature control like crazy. And so
okay?
like the things that we didn't know because a
Yeah.
lot of people never did it at this scale. And so because we had some money, like basically we should have had like an extra $3 to $4 million to do what we did. So we did
Mm,
it basically on nothing. And within this, because it's an old airport hangar, there's leaks and cracks. So like everything is temperature controlled, but I also work with nature at that building. It's not ideal, but like
mhm.
sometimes when I need to exchange air, I'll pull it in from the roof and exchange it out the top, or I'll close the vents to keep it hotter. So we work with nature with the building. But
Okay.
ideally, you want this like perfect um 68 to 73 degrees at like a 80% humidity, and it's all really custom tailored in because they're specific. I work for them. I can't tell them what to do,
Mm,
to a point.
yeah.
Basically, it just started like that and didn't know anything and just started growing mushrooms. And I just started going to every single restaurant in Chicago and knocking on every door, going door to door with a box of mushrooms. And
What I love is it's inspiring me and I'm sure others like you're talking about yes the passion for the mushrooms but you're also talking about like building facilities and like temperature control and probably using a hammer. I don't know if you're doing that but you're hiring people to help like
yeah, yeah,
there's
no,
so many
totally.
aspects of this business that are like not just like the passion of helping people through mushrooms. And so I know for me, I was just talking about this before, like, and this
Yeah.
is why again I work with Dan as a coach because he helps me keep moving and realize these barriers I'm putting in front of myself are not as extreme as I think they are. Like, oh, I need to have my guests sign waivers. I'm like, where do I get a waiver? And he said the same thing as you. He's like, just put it in chat GBT. I'm like, oh. And then before I even started this, I had talked about this podcast for like 4 years prior. And I was
Mm.
like, how do you like do a podcast? And my sister works at Spotify and she's like, you literally just buy a microphone and use this recording platform and like press record. And now I'm literally doing it right now on my iPhone with this little clip. Like it's this is easier than what you're describing, but yeah, I appreciate that you really just faced challenges and just kept going.
but Brent, I'm also human. There was something that I didn't want to do yesterday that I stared and like did 18 other things before I had to go do it. It still happens. Like, don't get me
Yes, yes,
wrong.
yes.
But yeah, um, it's something I actually keep on my phone. It's not easy realizing you're the only one who's been holding you back this entire time.
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
true. We get in our own fucking way. We're silly. I don't know why,
Totally.
but we do.
So, also wanted to know, because you were talking about like going to restaurants, and also during COVID, you were shipping, or when you were in that townhouse, you were shipping stuff out in mass quantities. Do you have to get like
Yeah.
FDA approved? Like, what was that process like?
No, because that's the thing. Basically, the mushroom industry just got built. So there is no FDA regulation. Because it was Etsy, there was really no regulation. But once I wanted to start getting into, like, obviously I had a food inspection and I was like, facility was clean. But to sell to restaurants, that's all you needed. But then what I did
Mm.
is I got a USDA organic certification. So for
Oh,
me,
cool.
that's like the credibility that you need, because there's just a lot of people doing a lot of bad things to our food out there. And
Yeah,
so like my big focus is the full transparency and being able to come in and seeing what substrate we use and seeing how we grow it. And,
totally.
yeah, giving people the whole experience.
And who was your main clientele? Was it wealthy people, like more woo spiritual people? Was it people in pain?
So that was the thing. Besides working there all every day, I also did the sales and I did farmers markets on the weekend. And
Cool.
so, the whole point was to make mushrooms not just for rich moms at farmers markets.
Yeah.
That was the point.
Yeah.
And so, um, but ideally, that's who was curious and interested first. I knew if I wanted to make them a staple, I needed to get them in areas that they weren't accustomed to. So then that's when I started branching out with like the inner city schools, and then like different, call them like dead zones, like they don't have grocery stores or they don't have
Yeah.
anything out here. And so being able to go into these different areas, but then finally bringing them to a price point where people can afford. They're only like $5 a pound at that rate,
Hmm.
But it progressed as it went. So like at first it was just culinary high-end restaurants, and then the vegan thing took off. And then that's kind of what saved me, to be honest, was that
Yeah.
all of these vegan chefs started using mushrooms and making all these crazy dishes. So I would
Cool.
just send them mushrooms for free and be like, yo, post me or tag me. And then it started building up momentum that way. But I was starting growing so many mushrooms, Bryn, that I ended up becoming like the largest donator to every like church and mosque and food bank all over, because
Wow.
I couldn't sell them all because nobody cared. Like restaurants
Right.
cared, but like I was growing, you know, 15,000 pounds a month. If you grow it, they will come. And so for grocery stores, in order to play ball, I needed a certain volume. They
Mm.
needed to know that I could have this volume consistently.
Yeah.
And so it was to just build out the containers, do the grow, donate the mushrooms. And essentially it was just waiting for the reality to catch up, because I had to literally create, like go into the store and show them, what does this mushroom actually look like? What container should it be in? How do they want it to be? Should they put it on the aisle? It wasn't just like oh, here. So
Totally. Well,
as the demand crept up, it then became a thing.
yeah.
And once it became a little bit normalized, that's when it all changed. And it was one moment that changed everything. So,
Which I definitely want to get to. What I was wondering though, what is the shelf life on mushrooms?
so fresh mushrooms, for oyster mushrooms or lion's mane mushrooms, oysters is about 9 to 11 days. Lion's mane is like 11 to 15 days, but it's really about how you preserve them. Do you have them in the right container or paper bag? Otherwise, they will dry out, because mushrooms are like 80 to 90% water. But you got to think about it from harvest to getting it onto a truck and to bringing it
Totally.
somewhere. Then it takes that down. And that's something that we have learned over the years, and something that I'm doing as I'm expanding out and working with other farms around the country and building more out, is that idea of hyper local mushrooms. I didn't have a choice when I was get going. So like right now, I think I'm out to like 18 or 20 different states, and like the ones that are farthest away, well, the mushrooms don't look as good, you know? And in all reality, if grocery chains were more centralized and like all these other ones are all here in Illinois, it would be totally different. But like my size facility could just supply a state, you
Mm.
know, and I'm gonna try to get it to be more like that.
And the physical form of these mushrooms that are going into grocery stores are just like whole mushrooms, right? Not powders.
Yes, just whole mushrooms. And so within that, because every category of people across the country is different in what their understanding of food is. And so in California, you can go to like an Erewhon or other fancy grocery stores and they have mushrooms just like bulked out and they're
Mm.
open and they're fresh and you can just grab them and weigh them. But in the
Yep.
Midwest, they're like, get the F out of here. We want cardboard, saran wrap. And I was like, yo, I'm not wrapping a living organism in saran wrap anymore. And
Yep.
so we basically, instead of having to invent anything, luckily other people started doing stuff. So I found a like compostable, breathable cardboard mushroom container. And then it basically had like a little window on it. So it gave it that like high end look. And so we would
Mm.
take the mushrooms, cut them in half, put a beautiful floret in there so you could see it within the window. And then they
Cool.
would stack on top of each other. All right. So I'll tell you who my main customer is from this. So in the process of this, we were growing so many mushrooms and we ended up coming up with fungitarian food, which is thinly sliced oyster mushroom meals. I have them, they're launched in, like, I don't know, 250 grocery stores right now. So
Oh, cool.
it's a 3 ingredient food item. We just sliced mushrooms, sauce, and spices. That's it.
Cool.
And avocado oil. And so that ended up taking off. We started selling them at farmers markets, then got them into like a local grocery. And then I pitched at a bigger event. It ended up getting taken at all of the grocery stores for 75 of them. And then we
Wow.
launched in Sprouts last year. So it's like the first fresh frozen oyster mushroom meal in the world. So that was
Cool. And
cool.
so it's a meal. It's not like it's a large
So
enough portion.
it's so my whole thing was like, yo, what do I do? Because I was at farmers markets and I was selling for the first year. I didn't have the fungitarian food, and I was just trying to get customer data. And every single person was like, well, I don't really like mushrooms, or like, oh, like the texture, or oh, this. I'm like,
Mm.
okay. So the biggest thing is they don't like the texture and they want it fully flavored. Okay, well, being the health nut I am, I also know food and how to cook. But we ended up having this like recipe done for a restaurant of this like the original like thin sliced fungitarian. But I was like, yo, nobody wants this like French cuisine style, like, yeah, maybe a high end restaurant, but like moms and kids. How do I make food for moms and kids?
Mm.
And so I was like, you make normal flavors, barbecue, taco,
Mm.
marinara, Asian zing. So you could just take what you already have, whether you have like rice or pasta or meat or a salad, open it, put it in the pan, heat it, and eat it. You're done in 3 minutes.
Yep.
And so it was just to make it super convenient and super easy. But my whole thing was, how do I get it to kids? Like,
Yep.
you have to make it in a perfect texture. And so it basically became like this pulled pork-esque type
Oh, okay.
feel, you know, super shredded, and you can just like kind of mix it. And so during this process, I ended up getting like 20,000 pounds to Chicago Public Schools. And they
Wow.
actually did like mushroom month. And so we had like kids come in and tour, and it was like, it was just super cool. It's all I was really
Oh my
working towards.
gosh.
Yeah. So it was
Wow.
awesome. So yeah,
It's
like
so
once
cool.
that
Like
happened,
I don't know why, but
yeah,
like something about you being in Chicago, I feel like is so perfect in so many ways and interesting and unique because you, as you kind of reference, you think of these like rich moms, you maybe think of California, you think of,
yeah,
Chicago is such a diverse place in terms of a lot of diversity. As someone that works in real estate, like there are some locations that are like major food deserts, no grocery stores. There are other super high end locations. During COVID, a lot of people left Chicago. I think still people are maybe population's going
still,
down it. Maybe they, yeah,
still,
I think
it's
leaving. So
expensive as
it's
shit to live here,
totally.
but
And yeah.
it's, but like you were saying with the diversity, and but you're like also saying no, like I have a food desert next to one of the richest areas of Chicago,
Yeah,
you know? So it's like we're this weird world of like a block over. You're like, what? There's not a grocery store. But the thing
totally.
about it is, I worked with all of these communities to build mushroom gardens, like raised bed gardens, and be able to provide food and teach them. But the biggest thing is, nobody know how to cook. So most of this
Mm,
food goes to waste. So there's like a
Yeah.
deeper rooted issue and problem that we're trying to solve out here. But
What I
that's another
really
podcast for another day.
Totally. What I really love, and you don't need me to tell you this, but is given your a lot of entrepreneurs, and no problem with this goal, is like, I want to start this business because I think it's a need, and I think I can make a lot of money from it, and I like, it's well intentioned, and from what I heard from your story, your initial motivation was this like clear message of like, I want to save the world through mushrooms, that therefore you're not after a certain clientele to like hook on, you're after
Everybody,
everyone. Yeah, which is
everybody.
really
That
really cool, and
and it's
it's
the
obvious.
hardest part going into a fucking business meeting. Sorry, my language, but like for them to like be like, no, no, no. So like, who's the target demographic? I'm like, yo, everyone. And they're like, it
Yes.
doesn't work like that. I'm like, watch.
Mm,
So it was like breaking down a lot of myths and a lot of barriers and a lot of, I've disproved everybody in this, from like even how to grow mushrooms. Like you have to be super
mm,
sterile and this and that, or the market's only going to accept it this way. And because I never did anything for myself. And that's what I loved about my business partner for Windy City, is he agreed. It wasn't what we wanted. It was what the customer wanted. It wasn't, it was still cost a lot of money to make. And so, we were down to our last, and like, don't get me wrong. Like we had a nut of money and we're just burning it every single month
mm.
for like a year and a half. And we're down to our last little bits at this moment. But everything is taking off. Like I got grocery stores popping off, Fungitarians popping off. And we're like, all right, we got into Naturally Chicago. And it was the idea that we were going to go out to Expo West and pitch Fungitarian to all of these national companies.
Mm,
And so we basically spent, our last bits of dollars going out to California to go to this convention. And I shipped frozen mushrooms, crock pots, and fresh mushrooms on blocks in cages across the country to California to set up at Expo West. And I went there with the intention to getting 4 deals. And I went there and I got like 8 deals.
oh
And
my
so
God.
during that time, while we were there, right in the beginning, one of the girls came up who was doing, like, she was one of the social media influencer girls running around, and I had crock pots full of hot mushrooms. It smelled delicious. She
Mm,
came in, tasted it, posted it, and started telling everybody that like
wow.
on the 3rd floor was like the best, right? And
Yeah.
so came up, we talked to Whole Foods, talked to Sprouts. Everybody was like, boom, 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 fake hands, deals. I was like, but it didn't
Yeah.
translate to dollars, Bryn. Like, this is like a yes in a year. Like, all right, well, I won't be in business in a year because I don't have any money. So, like, maybe you want these mushrooms now. And
Yeah.
so, lo and behold, the craziest thing in the world, a company that started 4 years when same year I started, 2020, 2021, called Smallhold. They had raised $45 million for mushroom tech and farming, built out
Mm,
3 facilities around the country, and had a national Whole Foods contract, and went bankrupt, and came to me at Expo West and was like, hey, can you save our Midwest Whole Foods contract? It's like a $70,000 a month contract. And can you start next week? And I was like, 100%.
oh
And so
my
like
God.
that hit, and it was like, oh shit. And then like 6 weeks later, the other stores I was working on getting in Chicago hit. So it was like another 50, 60,000 in sales a month in
Oh my
8
God.
weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is the
Crazy.
Fungitarian product, or this is other
This is
products as well?
Fungitarian and fresh. So like
Oh, okay.
Fungitarian hit and the fresh finally hit. And it was like, boom. And so that's the thing. It
Wow.
was like with Fungitarian, that doesn't mean it's going to sell because it's in there. It's a new product. But remember what I was saying, commodity level with the fresh. That
Mm,
means every single week it has to be at the store. And
right.
so that's when it finally stuck. And it
Oh my
was like,
God.
yeah. So
Goodness. This
yeah.
is awesome. And I also was curious because I don't know much about, like, obviously I don't know how to run a business. Like you were saying, Fungitarian before this moment, Fungitarian was going well, but we're going like go on to our last savings. I think it's another good message for people listening, is like, you can have an amazing product that people like and you are selling, but still the business isn't profitable. Is that what was
Yeah.
happening?
That's
Yeah.
exactly what was happening. And you couldn't scale that because it didn't matter. I could go to a farmer's market and sell, 100 of these packs. But for a consumer to go into a grocery store, to buy a bag of mushrooms that they've never seen before or never cooked or never done anything, that takes demos, that takes marketing, that takes all of that. And we only had enough to make the food,
Yeah,
So it was like, oh shit. Um,
totally. Oh, I love that.
yeah,
And so as you're, put it, this is all coming together over the, call it 8 years you've been doing it. I'm sure you're bootstrapping a lot of it yourself. You're learning how to do
the
marketing. You're
whole
learning how to
thing.
do
Yeah.
sales. This pop comes a year ago, or and you're now like really up and running. I'm sure you're wearing a ton of hats, juggling a lot. Are you hiring people? Like you're now a CEO? I don't know. What does your business look like?
So yeah, so basically at this time we then had to expand out and get ready for the next set of containers and the next set of grows. So, at this time, we started with 25 containers, then we added another 25 and another 25. By the time you're on your third one, it really wasn't anything. At this
Yeah,
point, I lived there basically 7 days a week for 3.5 years. So it was nothing. It was just like,
yeah,
okay, cool. Get 6 more people, put those packers over there. Now we got to add this many more boxes. You just like don't realize that I never realized I was also going to be a box company because with all this
mm,
stuff, this package needs to go into this package that goes into the pallet. And it's like, oh shit, like you don't realize the logistics of that. So, but it really got less crazy because it was more crazy when I had 100 restaurants to deal with.
yep.
And then so I couldn't suffice all the restaurants anymore. So the whole point was to phase them out because they're terrible to deal with, chefs and all this stuff. I love all you guys out there if anyone ever hears this, but you guys are terrible paying bills and you always change your orders. So it's much easier to just go to a grocery chain.
Yep.
And so then once we got like 5 major grocery chains, that was it. It was grow the mushrooms, pack them, come and pick up pallets.
Yep.
And so it went from like hectic to like big expansion, but it got easier,
Mm, yeah.
because it was just these one task and no one was be like, oh, I want a switch up of mushrooms this week. Like, no, you already have a preset order,
Yeah.
So it during that time, it like built up and I was there for like, this was like 24 and I was there for like 6 more months. And essentially, um, I was like, okay, well, it's successful now. It's good. I'm bored. And it was there wasn't new sales, there wasn't nothing. It was just keep doing what you're doing. And
Yeah.
at that rate I realized that like it was time to expand and it was time to like go out and do what I really wanted to do. I really only worked this hard so I can get to the psychedelics. And so I did that and I walked away and then I started the Fungitarian supplement brand because I was already making tinctures at that time. And so for the last year and a half, I've dedicated every day towards figuring out how to make the best mushroom supplements on the market. And now I've done that and I've just learned a lot. Be really careful about the supplements that you take. Um, and I'm going to show and prove all of that with all of my new content, all my new products, and all of my new testing, because all of the products now that are going to be tested to show the small molecule compounds. So, like, if you are taking our line's main product, it has arinacine A, which is actually the only compound in the lion's mane that increases nerve growth factor, which prevents Alzheimer's. So it's like
Mm,
we're now going to be able to give specific doses to people because a lot of people have just been getting fed nothing.
yeah.
So I went on that, basically went on to that, and then took whatever I've had and invested um, everything into getting off these supplements. And just recently, like 3, 4 months ago, after dumping the rest of my money into these supplements, I finally came together and met another partner and formed a new company and got some of my company bought. And I'm
Wow.
about to launch 4 new brands and then go with my new partners out to Denver and New Mexico to start opening up testing, manufacturing, and healing centers for psilocybin.
Oh my goodness. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That is
Thank you.
so I've gotten chills like 4 times, just so you know, in this episode.
Thanks.
That is awesome. And what was I gonna say? Oh, when you said people have been consuming a whole lot of nothing, it reminds me too. It's the same in skincare. Like
Oh
people
my
are like, this is your
gosh.
vitamin C serum. It has like no vitamin C. Like the amount of things that I'm sure we're all consuming that don't even have the thing. It's just so I really appreciate that, care for yeah,
Can I
being
give like a disclaimer?
yeah,
Can I like give like
please.
so people know, right? Like
Yeah.
I am deep in this. I can't name the other company, but they have tested over 1,000 products on Amazon and TikTok, and damn near 80% of them are fake. Just not
Wow.
even have anything in it. And what I've learned is it's not that everybody's just nefarious and doing like this bad stuff. Is even for Amazon and TikTok, the requirements are stiff, but they don't apply to product integrity. So an
Mm.
FDA and a GMP cert just means that you're clean, means you have like the right processes. But you can literally call a company in Malaysia, send them your brand, they'll ship you over product full of powder, full of in a bottle with a label on it for $10,000, no questions asked. You don't know what's in it. Here's a COA and good luck. And so like
Wow.
that's what the majority of people are doing. And even the stuff in stores, like don't think online is bad and grocery store good. No,
Yeah.
it's that stuff too.
Just last question. What the healing centers that you reference, like how do you envision those will look like? Is this like a yeah, like a space in a city, or is it in nature?
Yeah. So there's a lot of development. So Colorado fully passed their Prop 122 bill, which now allows for facilitators to possess psilocybin, DMT, or peyote. And they have micro centers and macro centers. So you'll be able to hold like 2 to 3 facilitators or one. The conceptual idea is to be within somewhat of the regulated model within Denver, where we're working directly with the state, and we have something within 35-40 minutes of the airport so that people can come in and be able to experience. And then it would be to go back out another 45 minutes or so away from the city into nature. So being able to integrate people both like the clinical way that they want it to or need, but as well as bringing them into into true nature. But a crazy thing, I've been working on this for a few months, and I was in Colorado in Telluride, and we pitched to the main board there because my partner does at home healthcare for people with Crohn's,
Mm.
infusions, and all of that stuff. And we believe that at home psilocybin care really should be worked into the bill, and it should be one of the main priorities because a spiritual experience like this, where is a better place than the comfortability of your home with what
Totally.
you have and with what you know? And actually, just last month, Colorado changed their laws and allows at home psilocybin therapy.
Oh
So
wow.
that's something that we're going to be really working on. And it's to go out there this year, as well as New Mexico. New Mexico was supposed to pass in 28. They're now moved it up to this year because
Mm.
it's a need. People need this help. And so the whole goal is to go out there to get data and outcomes so that I can bring it back to my hometown and be able to present this to this state because it's already put in here, but it just needs to be passed.
Yeah.
And then I believe then we can start regulating it and then rolling it out to every other state.
Oh my God. Grateful that you're doing this work. And I do have one more question.
Go.
Then psychedelics, the main usage, I guess, yeah. Would you mind sharing like who is it that
Yeah,
may come and seek the use of this?
I would say addiction, PTSD, trauma, um, really just like depression, anxiety. That's really like the big five that we
Okay.
see
So mostly
coming
the
in for
mind,
that.
less physical.
Uh, the we have Harvard and John Hopkins studies on the mind on what psilocybin does. Uh, all of us who work on it outside of just that area know that it helps with ailments and everything else. I just have to be careful about what I say, but it can absolutely help with the body. I actually help treat someone. She has MS and it's like terrible, debilitating. And the mushrooms actually help her be able to move every day.
Mm,
So we're like learning these different things about them. And so, like, that's why the data and the outcomes and doing all of that is so important. And so, with the psychedelic medicine, why Denver was so open about what we were presenting to them is because they weren't testing the mushrooms. So, not knowing like the content of what is in them, they weren't
mhm.
knowing exactly what mushroom they're giving to people. And there's about 300 species of one genus, psilocybe cubensis mushrooms. So it's like
Wow.
each mushroom has a different spirit and a different energy and a different potency. if you don't understand that, I can give you a gram of this or a gram of this. It's two different worlds. And so it's making sure that you know the person that you're getting it from actually knows what strain it is and can be
Yep.
specific about why we're there. Because if we don't know that, then we can't pre-predict an outcome. And then I can't make sure a facilitator is safe. So the whole goal is to try to make this regulated, standardized dose right now, so that we can be able to track pre-predictable outcomes. Because my goal is to, for example, like with ADD, okay, cool, we actually only need to give this much of this mushroom over this period of time, and then that will help someone control their ADHD,
Mm.
and we can get hyper specific with it. But until we track that data and have all of that, we won't know what's it.
Thank you so much, John, for
For
coming
sure.
on the podcast and for doing the work
Absolutely.
that you're doing. I'm really inspired, and I would love for you to share where people can find you,
Mhm.
find your products. So please plug
Totally.
any
Yeah.
places.
So you can find me on Instagram at Mr. Fungitarian, and you can find the supplements for fungitarian.life as a website or on social media. And then we have two more companies coming out soon, Forgotten Pharmacy and Namco, Naturally Occurring Molecules. But if you follow me on Instagram, I will be able to tell you more of that. And then, Bryn, I have one more.
Yes.
I have a Lion's Mane coffee syrup coming out in like 2 weeks.
Ooh. Okay.
Oh,
Remind me
first
which one. What?
exclusive
Yeah. No.
Lion's Mane. So for your brain health, so check it
For
out.
brain health. Okay. Oh my
Instead
gosh.
of
Yum.
buying this shitty mushroom coffee that doesn't taste good and doesn't have like real doses of mushrooms,
Totally.
for me, I was like, I love this like awesome Turkish organic coffee. Why wouldn't I just add my Lion's Mane to it for the brain benefits at an actual medical clinical dose? So that's what we're doing. So it's going to launch. I'll send you a bottle and you can test it out and try it.
Thank you so much. This was fantastic.
Totally.
I'm really glad we met. I can't wait to watch how everything unfolds.
Likewise.